I'm Charlotte McLeod with the Investing News Network, and here today with me is Jayant Bhandari of Anarcho Capital. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Charlotte.
Yes, and we're here today at the Precious Metals Summit. We're in Beaver Creek. It's the very first day. We're actually very early on, but do you have any initial thoughts on how it's been?
It's been very impressive, Charlotte. It's a much bigger crowd here this time, much bigger audience, and they have a whole new section to meet companies. Uh, this event is becoming my go-to event for meeting companies. I get to meet a very high end of companies in this conference, and I get to meet who's and who of investors community as well. So it's really probably my most favorite conferences anywhere in the world today.
Okay, well, hopefully this year goes well. Do you think the higher attendance tells us something about what's going on in the market right now?
I'm not sure because the conference has just started. I don't really know why there are so many more people, but I'm told that the conference organizers are actually refusing to accept some of the people who wanted to come for the conference, which means that they are becoming more selective, and the quality of companies and the quality of people is really good. My guess is there is clearly an increased interest in the gold sector, if and perhaps even in the commodities sector again.
Right, and we have seen gold make a very big price move since the last time that we spoke to you, which was about a month ago. What would you say has been driving that move?
There is a huge amount of problem everywhere in the world. The third world countries are suffering. Their economic growths have started to stagnate. The developed countries are suffering. And there is this strange thing that has emerged, which is the trade war between China and the US, which is harming particularly China. And China has been the growth engine of the world for the last 30 years. Now, US is a great country and it has also grown a lot, but China has been the growth engine from the manufacturing point of view, and China is suffering and it will continue to suffer. As a result, there is a huge amount of negativity in the society, economically and in terms of feeling of well-being among the people, which means that gold is increasingly become a place to be in these uncertain days.
You've had some changing thoughts about the trade war and where it's going. Where do you see it right now since we spoke to you a month ago? Have there been any big changes?
Well, I have always loved China. China is a great country, and I think it is the future of humanity. I love the fact that China and Chinese people are improving very rapidly. But at the same time, I have been incorrect about the leadership of China. I always thought that Chinese leadership would be more rational than it currently is. Xi Jinping is clearly egocentric, and he has created a lot of problems by messing around with Hong Kong, by trying to be too heavy-handed in terms of how he likes to control the country, and very stupid things like trying to ban a cartoon character just because the cartoon character apparently looks like Xi Jinping. Now, these are very strange things to do, which shows that he is egocentric and he's trying to be very heavy-handed in China. You cannot be heavy-handed for too long and expect things to work in your ways. And he has been heavy-handed with Trump and the US, and he did not really understand that Trump might not accept his heavy-handedness, and that has clearly gone very badly for China. Chinese economy will suffer very badly as a result.
At this point, do you see any resolution in the near future, or are we going to be stuck in the same kind of situation?
It will be very difficult now for Xi Jinping to get out of this situation, because in Asia there is a huge issue to do with saving face, and he has created a problem for himself in Hong Kong, and with the US, in which for him to pull back from it will mean that he will lose face, but that will also mean that certain elements within Hong Kong and China will get a huge amount of emotional power to rebel against Xi Jinping, which will destabilize China. So for him, he has put himself in such a strange situation that he can't resolve the situation, he can't move back either. So unfortunately, it will not be easy to sort this mess out.
Okay, so we talked about how this has been beneficial for gold. What about the precious metal stocks, gold stocks? Are they seeing that same upward momentum that gold has?
Some of the gold companies, particularly gold mining companies, have done very well. But what hasn't done very well is some of the very good companies in the early stage of development. And these companies have either stagnated since the beginning of this year, or they might even have fallen. And I think that has created a disconnect between the gold price and the gold development stage companies. And those people who can identify good companies run by good managements in the gold space, companies that haven't really performed while gold has performed, actually have a great opportunity to invest in those stocks.
Could you give some examples of those types of stocks or tell us a little bit about how you go about identifying them for yourself?
Well, I cannot right now name any stock. I haven't thought through them right now. But what I do is that I follow many companies and I run by good companies and with good projects. And then if the value is good in my view, and if gold price has done very well, which means that the value of those share prices have risen actually even higher. And if the share price hasn't risen much or has stagnated, it offers me a great opportunity. For example, just to name one stock, Charlotte, is O3 Mining. The ticker is OIII, and they have actually fallen about 30% in the last few months. Despite that, I haven't seen any negative news. They have two decent projects in Canada, and it's run by very competent management. So it's companies like those, particularly if I cannot find negative news about those companies, I'm very keen to invest in. I am trying to figure out if there's anything bad about O3 Mining. If there isn't, then I am actually a keen buyer of it.
Are there any things that could throw gold off of the path that it's on right now? Are there any headwinds it could face?
Well, clearly the problem, Charlotte, is that gold price can go up only as long as people have the capacity to buy more gold. And a lot of these third world countries, and I include Saudi Arabia as a third world country, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, people who are major buyers of gold are actually suffering economically. I'm told that restaurants in India are now, expensive restaurants in India are now going empty because people don't have enough cash to go out eating, which means that if they don't have the financial capability, they actually want to protect their wealth by buying gold. But if the gold price goes up too much, they don't really have the capacity to buy more gold. And that is really the strange situation with gold all the time. And if these countries suffer, for example, if India and Pakistan go into a war on the Kashmir issue, or if China suffers economically, gold buying will fall because they will just have more interest but less money to buy gold.
Okay, that's really interesting. With all of the focus on gold right now, do you think there are other areas of the resource space that people are missing or not focusing enough on?
I think that Chinese growth in the medium and long term will continue. The pessimism, and I have to confess that I have been wrong about Chinese leadership. I think this will not last for too long. Chinese are very rational people. They are very focused on getting things right and economic growth. So in the medium and long term, Chinese growth will continue, and that means that consumption of commodities will continue to rise. The problem, however, is that despite that commodity consumption in terms of volume has doubled or tripled in the last few decades. The prices haven't necessarily performed, and mining companies have actually done very badly. So people have to really understand that these rising demand for commodities does not necessarily translate into higher prices and does not mean that the mining companies will do well. They have to invest in a way that they actually benefit from increasing commodity prices, which means that they have to pay a lot of attention to the underlying assets and the quality of management.
As we wrap up, where would you say we're at right now in the overall commodity cycle?
Again, I think in the short term, there will be sufferings because China will face problems. Hong Kong problem will continue. Hong Kong people are not Beijing people of Tiananmen Square. Hong Kong people will not give in that easily. So Chinese government has put itself into a very embarrassing position by interfering in Hong Kong. So in the short term, there are a lot of pains. In the medium and long term, Chinese growth is by itself enough to continue to increase demand for commodities. At the same time, don't expect anything from the other third world countries, which in my view are all imploding.
Anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up?
Well, I'm looking forward to this conference. This is a huge conference with a lot more people than I have ever seen in the past. And Beaver Creek is such a lovely and beautiful place to come to. So I'm looking forward to the next 3 days.
Okay, me too. Thanks so much for talking today.
Thank you very much for having me, Charlotte.
Great. And once again, I'm Charlotte McLeod with the Investing News Network, and this is Jayant Bhandari of Anarcho Capital.